They don't shout, they don't threaten, they smile, because real manipulators don't attack your strengths. They study your weaknesses, they observe, they listen, they collect information, your fears, your insecurities, your emotional triggers, and while you think you're connecting, they're mapping the parts of you that can be used later. They ask questions that sound innocent, they remember details that others forget, and they use empathy like a mirror to make you trust them faster. But behind that smile, behind the kindness, there's calculation. Not all charm is warmth. Some charm is strategy. In this video, you'll see how emotional predators disguise curiosity as care, how they build your trust to prepare your fall, and how they weaponize your vulnerability until you start defending your own manipulation. Because the most dangerous people in your life are not the ones who scare you. They're the ones who make you feel safe just long enough to stop seeing the danger. They smile, but their eyes are studying. It starts small. It always does. A co-worker who listens too closely when you vent. A friend who asks just one question too many. A partner who remembers every insecurity you've ever confessed during a quiet night. You call it connection. You think, finally, someone who understands me. But they're not just listening, they're recording. They study how your voice changes when you're nervous. They notice what makes you doubt yourself. They remember every wound, every soft spot, every crack in your confidence, and they'll hold that knowledge patiently until one day they'll use it. Maybe in a disagreement, you're overreacting again like you always do when you feel ignored. Or in a moment of guilt, I thought you said you wanted to be better than this. You feel cornered, not because they shouted, but because they used your own story against you. That's how emotional control begins, not with confrontation, but with data collection. They build a psychological map of you, then walk you in circles inside it until you forget where the exit is. And the scariest part, they look gentle while doing it. To understand how they do it, you have to understand the psychology of safety. The human brain lowers its defenses in the presence of warmth. A smile, a calm tone, eye contact. These are primal cues of safety. Your nervous system relaxes, oxytocin rises, and logic quietly steps aside. That's when they begin. They'll ask open-ended questions, not out of curiosity, but for calibration. They're identifying your emotional entry points, the exact words that make you soften, the topics that make you flinch, the memories that make you compliant. They'll mirror your gestures, your speech rhythm, even your breathing, not because they like you, but because similarity creates trust. And the moment you feel seen, you unconsciously hand over control. Because now their approval feels like belonging. Here's what happens next. When they want to influence you, they don't need arguments. They just withdraw that approval. A subtle sigh, a disappointed silence, and your brain, desperate to restore the lost safety, bends itself back into their shape. That's the invisible leash. Not force, not fear, but emotional conditioning hidden behind kindness. It's why you never saw it coming, because they never raised their voice. They raised your dependence. They taught your nervous system that peace exists only when they're pleased. And once that belief is planted, control becomes effortless. They don't need to manipulate your actions directly, they just control your state. And a controlled state makes predictable behavior. That's how a smile becomes a weapon, and trust becomes a trap. There's a day, there's always a day, when the illusion cracks. You start noticing the pattern, the way their kindness fades right after you set a boundary, the way their tone changes the moment you disagree, the way they remember your pain, not to comfort you, but to control the situation. And suddenly, every nice thing they ever did feels different. You replay the conversations. You realize the comfort was data, the empathy was reconnaissance. The smile was a mask. That's the moment the air changes. You feel sick, not just at them, but at yourself. Because part of you knew, You felt it in the small hesitations, the nervous laughter, the gut feeling you silenced every time they said, "You're imagining things," but now you see it clearly. You were never loved for who you are. You were studied for how you react. Every confession became ammunition. Every weakness became leverage. Every vulnerability became a doorway they walked through again and again while smiling. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Because once you understand the precision of their manipulation, you realize it wasn't spontaneous. It was systematic. They didn't stumble into your heart. They mapped it. They charted every emotion, every trigger, every need. And now you finally see what that smile really meant. It wasn't affection, it was satisfaction. They had already won the game, until now. Because awareness is the one thing they can't predict. You don't fight them by shouting, you fight them by seeing. Manipulators who hide behind kindness rely on one thing: your need to be understood. So the moment you stop chasing their understanding, the entire system collapses. Stop feeding them information. They can't use what they don't know. Every emotional detail you share becomes potential leverage. So speak less, reveal less, observe more. When they realize they can't read you anymore, they lose their map. 2. Respond with neutrality. Manipulators thrive on reaction, joy, guilt, anger, confusion. But calm destroys their control. Use short, calm sentences. "I understand. I'll think about it." That's your opinion. No emotional tone, no explanation. It drives them insane because they can't anchor to your emotions anymore. 3. Reclaim your patterns. Notice when you feel the urge to explain or fix. That's not kindness. That's conditioning. Pause. Breathe. Let the discomfort exist without reacting. Every time you resist the pull, you take back a piece of yourself. 4. Detach from their validation. They taught you that peace comes from keeping them happy. Now you teach yourself that peace comes from silence, space, and self-trust. If they get angry at your calm, you're finally doing it right. 5. Don't try to expose them, outgrow them. They live off attention. The most painful thing you can do to a manipulator is become unreachable. You don't need revenge, you just need distance and awareness, because once they realize their smile no longer works, they stop studying you and start fearing you. They smiled while studying you. They memorized your fears, your tone, your tears. They built a version of love that kept you small and called it care. But here's the truth. The moment you stopped explaining, the moment you stopped chasing peace through their approval, the game ended, because control can't survive where awareness lives. They wanted to understand you so deeply that you'd forget who you are, but now you remember. You know the signs, the soft tone that hides pressure, the gentle look that demands compliance, the smile that means, "I'm in control." Not anymore. Now you study them. You see the tension behind their calm, the fear behind their confidence, because the manipulator's greatest weakness is your clarity. You were never weak. You were observant. You were never naive. You were kind. And they mistook your kindness for blindness. But now you see. And once you see, you can't be played again. Subscribe to the channel and don't stop at this video. They're still using tricks you haven't noticed yet. The next video will show you exactly how they do it. And once you see it, you'll never see people the same way again.